Hello again everyone, welcome back to DIY, The Art of Wood. I'm Jeremy. I'm a pretty simple guy, especially when it comes to working in my shop. I subscribe to the philosophy of if you already have something that's working for you, why build or buy something new? And that's a great philosophy to have, especially when you're trying to do things on a budget or if you're a DIYer. But the more time that I spend working in my shop here, the more I'm starting to realize that some of these reclaimed workbenches and thrown together, I mean, I don't even know what this thing is behind me. I don't even know what this thing is behind me. It was here when I moved in. Just really aren't working for me that well anymore. They're incredibly inefficient and they actually waste time. Like for instance, this disaster behind me here, I guess it's some sort of a storage rack workbench. I just threw all my scrap lumber on it. The other day, I was building something here in the shop and I wanted to use just scrap material to do it. It took me about 45 minutes to dig through this pile to find a few pieces of scrap lumber and a few pieces of scrap plywood to build the thing. That's incredibly inefficient. It's time for me to move on from that and start to invest the time and money into building some workbenches and some storage solutions that actually fit this space and that fit my work style so that I can spend more time building things and less time digging through piles like this. So first things first, obviously this thing needs to go. It's been an eyesore and it's been in my way for quite a while. I'm going to probably go through the pile right now, get rid of the pieces that are just complete scrap that I don't even need to hang on to anymore. Find a new place to put them temporarily and just completely tear this thing down. Open up this space for something else that's actually going to work for me. And so, it's time. Let's get to work. Okay, so that's much better. I got rid of about 75% of all the scrap lumber that I had on this rack here, and I moved it across to the other side of the shop onto a reclaimed storage rack that I'm using as a temporary lumber rack until I can build something a little bit better. But for now, it will do just fine. Actually, you know what? Let's take a look at it. I'll spin the camera around here. So we'll take a look at this real quick. So this is where I moved all the scrap lumber to. This is just a temporary situation right now, but it is much better than what I had before. It's much more manageable. I can very easily see what I have to work with. And this is probably about all I ever want to keep on hand as far as scrap. Not that mountain mess that I had before. It's not ideal, of course, but I can see what I have. I can dig through it pretty quickly. There is some organization here, longer pieces up top. Got some long pieces running this way, scrap plywood, and there's some melamine and MDF over there, and then some of the shorter cutoffs are down here and in these bins. So it's really easy for me to be able to go through this and find what I need. And now I'll show you what I have going on over here where that huge mess used to be. And the great thing is it's actually a functioning, efficient work area. So I have my miter saw set up over here on this table, and this table is nothing fancy. It's actually just a reclaimed office desk that I'm using as a miter saw station. Not exactly ideal, but for now it will work. And I also moved the drill press over here. And that will do a couple things having these two tools together for me. One, they can share the dust collection system, which is really handy. And two, since the drill press has a nice table on it, if I'm cutting something long on the miter saw, I can raise the table up to the same height as the miter saw table here and use it as an extension if I need to. So that will definitely come in handy from time to time. But there's an important lesson to be learned here for all of us, really, myself included, and that is this. That the more time that I spend working in my shop, the more and more I realize that making do with thrown together workbenches and reclaimed lumber racks, while that's a good idea in the beginning to get you started, after a certain point, that starts to actually slow you down. It reduces efficiency and it makes your time in the shop less enjoyable. And I'm starting to realize that it's time for me to start to get away from that and to start to build more efficient and properly designed workstations and workbenches. And I've already started that process. Now for me, using this reclaimed table here as a miter saw station is fantastic for right now. And I'll tell you why. Because it's going to give me a chance to figure out exactly what I need out of a miter saw station. How big do I want it? What kind of features do I want integrated into it? And using something simple like this, as I'm using it, those ideas will pop up in my head. And when I'm ready to build one, I'll know exactly what I want out of it. If you're just starting out in woodworking, I don't recommend diving into building big fancy work tables and workbenches, because you really don't know what kind of woodworking you're going to get into, what your needs are, what your budget is just yet, and what kind of space you're going to need. So just start out simple, use what you have, build basic tables, and then go from there. So for now, I am just going to use this miter saw table pretty much just as it is, but I am going to add one feature to it, and I'll probably start on that today, and that's to improve the dust collection for the miter saw. Now, most miter saws, this one included, has a vacuum port that you can hook a dust collection system up to, or a shop vac, or whatever you're using for dust collection. But it doesn't get very much of it. I mean, maybe it gets half of it. It's kind of hard to tell exactly how much, but I don't know how well you can see this, but I've got sawdust all over this table, and I've only made a few cuts with it since I moved the miter saw over here. And I think one of the problems is, and we'll take a look, maybe you can see this on camera, is, let's swing this around a little bit, but, and if you can't see this very well, if you have a miter saw at home, you can maybe take a look too, but the end of the dust chute is just this kind of this small, narrow little opening that is supposed to collect all the dust coming off this thing. And these things make a lot of dust. There's just no way it can get anywhere near all of it. So what I'm going to do is basically build a very simple dust collection box to go around it. Just real simple, nothing fancy. I did buy this dust collection chute from Rockler, and I'll put a link in the description if you want to check this out and build one of these for yourself. So I'll just build a box big enough to go around it, make sure I have enough space inside to swing all directions and bevel it and slide it back and forth as needed. So it will have to be a pretty good sized box. Stick this on the back, stick my hose up to it, and this should collect a lot more dust and be a lot more efficient for me. Before I begin building the dust collection hood for the miter saw, I thought I'd cover some of the other changes I've made to the shop here over the past few weeks. Getting rid of that messy pile of a lumber rack that was over there allowed me to take the table that was right here that I was using as a outfeed table for the table saw slash miter saw station slash assembly table slash workbench slash allowed me to take that and move it over there to set that up more as a permanent miter saw station. And then that freed up this space right here and allowed me to build this giant outfeed table slash assembly table slash workbench. Now, this bench is pretty basic. It's nothing fancy. I think I spent maybe a little over $100 for all the material to build it, but it does have some pretty cool features built into it already. I'll probably cover those features in a separate video, but I'll touch on a few of them right now so you can kind of get an idea of why I built a table like this. First off, it was cheap to build, which I love. And second, it's huge. It's a full 4x8 sheet of 3/4 inch melamine on the top. And 3/4 inch melamine was a great choice because I don't have to put a finish on it. It has the melamine on the top. It cleans up easy. It looks nice. It's nice bright white so you can see it reflects light well. It's nice and flat, so it gives me a nice flat area to work. And it's big enough that I can use it as a workbench, an assembly bench, outfeed table. I've got my stationary sander set up on it, and I don't have to move stuff around. I can just leave stuff where it's at. Right, Mabel? And I've also got a few other exciting things planned to integrate and build into it soon. I'm going to be putting some T-track in it soon, so definitely keep an eye out for that video. I'm also going to build and install a dust collection manifold so I can hook up all these tools here and have them connect to just one dust collection system. And I'm going to be automating my dust collection system. I just ordered a product I just recently learned about. I don't know a lot about it yet, don't know how well it works, and I'll let you know. It's a specially designed electrical outlet that you plug your power tools into, and then you plug your dust collector into as well, or your shop vac. And as soon as you kick on one of your power tools, like the table saw, it will automatically turn on the dust collector or your shop vac. And then when you turn off the power tool, turn off the table saw, it'll let your dust collector run for, I think it said 6 or 7 seconds to kind of clear out the lines, and then it shuts that off too. So you don't have to try to always remember to turn the dust collector on and turn it off when you're done. Automation is fantastic. And I'll let you know how that works out. A couple of the other changes I've made here is I moved the bandsaw over here. It used to be kind of farther over there. And I can use this table as an outfeed table for the bandsaw as well. If I'm resawing a long board, it can just drop right onto here. And I built a router station. So that is a reclaimed kitchen base cabinet with a router tabletop, router fence, and a router lift, all from Rockler. So you'll be seeing that in use here pretty soon. And I've got my sanders here, and I still have the pocket hole station right next to the table saw like it's always been. But one of the great things about this is almost all my power tools are together in one spot, and the couple that aren't are just right over there. So as far as efficiency goes, it's going to be fantastic to have everything right here. I've also got my jointer planer right here. It's just kind of tucked under the table. You probably can't see it. I can just wheel it out when I need to use it and kind of wheel it back when I'm not using it. I'm probably going to try to find a more permanent home for it, but for right now it's on wheels, it can move, so that's fantastic. And so the conclusion here is if you're a woodworker, a weekend DIYer, a hobbyist, whatever it is, no matter what space you have, no matter how big or how small your shop is, you need to think about efficiency and workflow. Trying to get all your tools as close together as possible so that they can share electrical, they can share dust collection, and you can move from one station to the other without having to walk all the way across your shop like I was doing before. And if you have a really small shop where you can't have everything kind of set up permanently like this, that's okay. Just make sure everything's on wheels so you can kind of move things around as you need. And also building a table like this, an inexpensive but still functional and very sturdy workbench slash outfeed table, is a great intermediary between what I had before, which was the cobbled together workbenches and reclaimed tables, and the big fancy heirloom style $1,500 workbench. It would be a great place for any new woodworker to start to build something like this just to get you started. Now, it's time for me to get started on the dust collection hood, so let's get to it.